I'm happy to introduce you to Frank Peeler, Head of Institute at RWTH Aachen University. Frank is a professor of management and head of the Institute for Technology and Innovation Management. His research covers strategies for customer-driven value creation like mass customization, open and user innovation, and change in established programs. He is a member of the advisory board of Germany's national platform Industry 4.0, and today he is presenting Industry 4.0 in the post-corona economy. If you have questions for Frank, please enter them into the session Q&A on the right-hand side of your screen.
Industry 4.0 in the post-corona economy. So what's the influence of our current crisis on Industry 4.0 and the future of smart manufacturing? And I believe many of you have seen such a picture in the last weeks, asking what really led to your digital transformation, the CEO, the CIO, or COVID-19. And we joke about it and think, oh, but actually it's true. Well, perhaps, hopefully, something else is driving your digital transformation in your company as well. So before I go into 10 propositions we developed with a large stakeholder consortium in Germany on the future of Industry 4.0, let me very briefly give you our thinking and framework of Industry 4.0. And normally I need an entire day in an executive class to explain what I now will explain in 3 minutes, but you are an advanced audience, so I think you will manage that. So our smart factory framework really starts with the technological infrastructure layer. And in the course of today's program, you will hear much more about enabling technologies. From my perspective, the first really innovative component of a smart factory framework are smart assets. So the cyber-physical systems, connected machinery, tools, but also resulting products which produce a digital twin, a digital shadow of not just the engineering design, but also what is happening in manufacturing and also usage of the assets and products. And this data generated there is then utilized in smart operations for what some people call data-driven operational excellence. We'll comment on that a little bit later, but also to enable workers to be more productive. And in the end, it's about really data-driven decision-making. And while the second pillar is more on the plant or workstation perspective, the next or third layer is on smart supply chains. As much as we can connect individual assets in a factory, we also can connect entire networks of plants and factories within one corporation, but also with our supply chain partners. And here recently, the term of resilience came much more into perspective. Also, a little bit later, more about this. And finally, manufacturing platforms. So the idea is that it's not just a layer and a network of supply chains, but it's really all taking place in an aggregated business ecosystem that's driven by an industrial data cloud, but especially governance mechanisms of the industrial platform. So those are the 4 pillars of a smart manufacturing system, but there's more. As a core question, at least for me as a management leadership professor, is what is the smart business model we are enabling? Why are we really doing it? Just for operational excellence, or are there higher ambitions? And when talking about the business model, we can take 2 perspectives on that framework. If you look on it from the left-hand side, we'll talk about industrial efficiency and the enhancement of the current value logic. And many executives that talk about smart manufacturing, they say we are doing it to get operational excellence, or OEE, equipment efficiency. This is very good, but a little bit boring and often leading just to benchmarking and becoming all the same. If you look at it on the picture from the right-hand side, it's much more about differentiation and exploration of a new value logic. And we talk about agility, assortment flexibility, customization for your customers, and resilience. So both perspectives have obviously the reasons of existence, but perhaps we have to look a little bit more from the left on that picture. So overall, this is our framework to really discuss smart factory and the future of manufacturing. So let's now really look into what some companies are doing. And for reasons of time, I only want to share one vision of a global leader. And this was before COVID. So if you go to Daimler, and they last year published a really nice vision for the Factory 56. And significantly increased concept to really of the car factory of the future. I will now show you a 1-minute clip. And while watching it, just try to identify what's really driving Daimler's Factory of the Future vision, which, however, is yet to be built. Well, start of production should be soon. We'll see how this is influenced by the crisis here. But what we saw was a clear vision of a company, and what I really liked are these different pillars. And there was actually one element mentioned I didn't mention in my framework: sustainability. And again, we'll come back to this at the end of my talk. Well, while this was a strategic vision of a nation, of a big company, and you may say Daimler is like a nation, but there also is a strategic vision in Germany on Industry 4.0. And it's published by the platform Industrie 4.0, our largest stakeholder initiative. And these were actually the guys that brought you the term Industry 4.0. I'm very proud to serve on the academic advisory board of this platform as one of the very, very few business school professors among many great engineering professors. And this platform published last year the Vision 2030. And so this is the vision of Germany for Industry 4.0. And on the left-hand side, you see interoperability. This is very much the traditional story of Industry 4.0, connectivity. And a great colleague here at Aachen University, Günther Schuh, coined the term of collaboration productivity as one of the key KPIs of Industry 4.0. We just increase the productivity on doing collaborations, working with each other. Then there's a term of autonomy. And autonomy is really about, well, being independent from perhaps big Chinese or American platforms, data, to really be autonomous as a country, but also as a single company, as an SME, to make your own decisions and not dependent, as perhaps nowadays we are as consumers of social media platforms. And finally, sustainability with regard to ecological sustainability, climate, but also with regard to social responsibility. So how did COVID-19 change this discussion? That was a question where I spent with thinking and talking about a lot in the last weeks. And on the one hand side, I engaged in a number of online situation rooms as a leadership network, a leadership facilitator I work with a lot out of London. And here we had dozens of global manufacturing leaders, head of manufacturing of big multinationals. And we basically asked them the questions you see here, and you also as kind of homework can answer these questions with your team. So what was your original smart factory vision before the crisis? How did your vision change in light of the recent events? And what are hurdles and drivers you always perceived in realizing your vision, but also hurdles or drivers that may have changed because of the experiences we all made collectively in the last weeks? And out of this, we collected answers like this, and I don't go into this here. And at the same time, while doing this work with individual companies, we also were in a smaller work group within the platform Industrie 4.0, where we also asked these questions. And our starting assumption was there will be clear leaders and new winners because of this situation. And what will characterize these new winners? And this is now what I want to introduce you in the remainder of my talk. And it's exclusive just for you, as the official press release of these propositions will be only on June 16. So you're really ahead of the public here. And you have to keep in mind that this was driven a little bit from a German manufacturing background, which is very much focused on machinery, asset and infrastructure manufacturing. So, well, the first proposition is not too surprising. We saw a big push for digitalization and digital business models. And companies that were reluctant really see, no, we really have to do it now. And I think this is what every one of you was thinking and hearing in the last weeks. However, it's not so simple. Just as we now experience how great Zoom is in the home office, we will not digitally transform our factory. And in the past, there are two of the core challenges of digital transformations in big manufacturing organizations. One is a kind of unspoken disagreement among managers about the real goals. Why are we really doing it? And the second is a divide between what's done in a pilot, and every one of you has a pilot, but what are really the capabilities you need to bring this to scale? Yes, and those two challenges are still very true. And I think we don't overcome them by just experiencing a little bit of home office. However, there may be even a larger challenge. And this is between reorganization and transformation. Currently, in a crisis situation, where many of you really lost demand, you focus on the core, you reorganize, you save cost, you really scrap everything what's not really bringing immediately value. And this is exactly the right way to do. And as a result of this, companies may become more lean. And actually this is a perfect situation to then move into transformation, creating a new core. And so my word of warning is here, don't move now immediately into transform your factory, but really use the institutional pressure, the opportunities because of this you have now to first reorganize, very quickly focus on the core, and then move into a transformation. Is reorganizing on the one hand side and transforming on the other are so different activities that I think it's almost impossible to do it at the same time. But the only solution that's clear is you just can't continue as you did before the crisis. So now let's say you moved into transformation and flexibility and agility will become the base of competitiveness. And we believe that the time that we talk about operational excellence, predictive maintenance, predictive quality is not over, but it's finally considered to be boring. And we really need to focus on flexibility and agility. Here's a picture of a company I visit often with executives, BMW in Leipzig. And if you just look on the left-hand side on the objectives, and I think this were very ambitious and perhaps leading also as a, can become like a perspective for you guys as well. There is a typical efficiency increase, 6 Sigma quality, 10 Six Sigma quality, but 25% volume and product mix adaptability. So not just having assortment flexibility, but also volume flexibility of 25%, a rather ambitious goal for a car manufacturer. Minus 30% time to market. And these are really objectives beyond operational efficiency, but really to enable a company like BMW or plant like Leipzig to differentiate itself. And a new KPI will come to the center, resilience. Resilience actually is a very old concept. I think I wrote a paper about it as a bachelor's student, and this was definitely many, many years ago. But resilience of value networks really became up as a priority. There are two objectives of resilience. One company say we really now have to get vertical integrated. Everything what we outsourced to Chinese suppliers, we now have to do ourselves. Yes, it's possible, and actually a really interesting value proposition, as you may use the capabilities of Industry 4.0 infrastructures to reduce, or let's say to manage the complexity that comes with vertical integration, so doing more by yourself. However, other companies are saying, no, I actually have to invest even more in cooperation, build a broader, more reliable set of partners. And this is the objective of a huge research project we actually just started in Aachen. We were pitching it before COVID, and then when the crisis came, we were not really congratulating ourselves. We're really proud that we just started a project here between the business and the engineering school in Aachen on creating production systems and networks with AI-based resilience. So our idea is really to use big data, machine learning, and advanced AI to understand different drivers of resilience in a factory environment. And it's too early to show results. We actually just started, but go to the website and learn more about the project. Localization of manufacturing demands new products and process architectures. Yes, we talked a lot about localization recently, and this may be also one, element of a resilient manufacturing infrastructure, but to rely on local manufacturing. And also, this is nothing new. A couple of years ago, Munich Re, the big reinsurance, obviously had too much money, so they teamed up with KUKA and Porsche to create smart factories as a service. And the idea was to have a network of smart factories that are just smart factories that don't have any products, but that product owners can go to these local manufacturing units and actually produce for local demand very, very flexibly. And I envision that these kind of concepts are really get new power in the next years. However, it's not the future. We have this already in additive manufacturing. Another technology also get like a reboost in the last weeks. And as if you want to 3D print something, well, you can have a small printer, but actually you don't need to. As you, as a user or an industrial SME, can access very high-end, very expensive 3D printing capability over networks like Materialize or Shapeways. Or if you really want to have it fast, you can also use local 3D printers, which are connected by a network like 3D Hubs that literally has thousands of 3D printers to your disposal. And with this, we come to trend number 5. New ecosystems and marketplaces are emerging. And we saw a lot of specific demand and supply matching platforms in the last weeks. So here just at our university, there was one by colleagues on needmask.com to really match need and supply of masks. And this was driven by our Textile Engineering Institute with great capabilities and partnerships in these fields. But there was another from the Invention Center here on the campus, great network of companies where I'm also one of the academic co-advisors of. And they thought a little bit more holistically by really providing a supply chain network for different kinds of protective gears in a hospital or elder care setting. But here you see already the challenge. 2 platforms in one city, just from one university, competing with each other, this never will work. And there were hundreds of other platforms. So network effects, of course, and critical mass play a critical role. But the real challenge of platforms is beyond these marketplaces. Real platforms really start on the business model level. As consumers, we all knew that big, especially American platforms, are ruling the game here. In industrial manufacturing, the game has just started. And that was also before COVID. And before COVID, I saw that a lot of people want to launch a keystone platform, become the orchestrator, like the Amazon, the Google, the Apple of their industry. What we predict after the COVID crisis is that we will see, instead of these keystone platforms, more alliance-driven platforms, owned not by one focal player, but by an alliance. It's cooperation or collaboration will be the new normal, even more than before. And there were a couple of examples. An old established one is Skywise in the airline industry. At the end of last year in agricultural equipment, John Deere and Claas and others created a data connect platform for farming and agricultural data. There are similar initiatives in the mobility industry. And this is a strong trend we'll see. A great German example is Adamos, owned by 15 SMEs, well, larger mid-sized companies, that again said, we need the same functionality. Why should we all create our platform ecosystem? Let's do a cooperative and work together here. And our prediction in the platform is that we will see these kind of business ecosystems that are owned by an alliance to a much larger extent. And for your technology watch list is also the industrial data space, originally from Fraunhofer in Germany, but now a truly European or even global initiative that is not really talking about the business application, but say for industrial platforms, we need an industrial data space where we really safely share the data out of digital twins and shadows, which are the underlying, let's say, oil liquid source of all the value being driven in Industry 4.0. 6, moving forward, innovative revenue models are getting traction. So if you are a cash-strapped company, would you buy your new equipment if you can lease it and having within a subscription or operating model? Well, probably you will go to the latter. And this is exactly what we'll see. And so it's again this reorganization and transformation. On the one hand side, machinery companies were producing and selling an asset and offering some services later on. In a new business logic, we'll see that everything is provided as a service and that production and operating an asset in a subscription model will become the core business model. And this was also a little bit an older story, but we really predict that the cash situation of companies nowadays is fostering this much more as we saw it in the past. And with this, you have new competence requirements, as if you're not any longer producing and selling an asset, but operating an asset for your users and customers, you need much more capabilities beyond traditional engineering and manufacturing. You need lots of service know-how, user orientation, financial expertise, marketing capabilities, but also scalability strategies. And just a quick example, if you produce and sell an asset, you will use data science for quality prediction. If you transform and you produce and operate an asset in a subscription model, you will use data science for value-based pricing based on your predictions of quality. So it's a very different game here, and you have to learn that. I really like this quote by Victoria von Kamp, the CTO of SKF, a producer of bearing systems, which are now getting smart. And instead of selling you this system, she will just perhaps lease you, even for such a component, its operational functional value. And she said to me, we used to design for quality, which very often led to over-engineering, by the way. And now we design for prediction. These are really new skills we have to acquire in our engineering teams. Moving at the end to the new work and new organization. Physical distances in production. And connected with the service orientation I talked about earlier, we'll also predict that remote services really will increase importance, virtual reality, collaborative robotics, and so on. And the more we get these tools, actually, the more it is possible to operate not just your plant as a plant manager on a big dashboard, but even a workstation, perhaps from your home, remotely. Or that from one location, as an operator, you operate several workstations, perhaps at several countries remotely. And there we'll see very interesting scenarios coming up. And so the idea of augmented and virtual reality in Industry 4.0 probably also will get a big push. And perhaps it will be not just the assessment, your equipment. perhaps we also will use much more avatars of every one of us to really be in these virtual environments, as you see on the upper right-hand corner in this picture, where we actually worked with Deutsche Telekom to enable them to put their innovation labs, create physical spaces into the virtual space, but with avatars of people and customers, real persons, digital twins of humans interacting there. And with all this flexibilization of work, we need new form of organizing and learning, definitely. And so industrial work processes will change drastically as a result of these remote services, as a result of database decision-making. And so we really have to follow these developments. And there are different strategies how to address it, top-down or bottom-up. I don't go into detail here, but I just think we really see now very strongly the priority to take care about this and organize it. But also very often, I would just say, trust your workers, trust your engineers, as many of them may have picked up new data science skills in the lockdown with an online course on Coursera or Audacity, and just gives them the freedom to put this knowledge now into play. Finally, and to come to a close, Industry 4.0 is an enabler for sustainability. And we strongly believe in the platform. That was also obvious for me when talking to these manufacturing leaders, that sustainability will not be sacrificed for profits in the next months. But that perhaps we really learn from COVID that we have to stand together, not just as humans, but also with our environment. And sustainability with regard to social sustainability, really integration of workers and everyone, decent work and education, but obviously also climate change mitigation and establishing the circular economy. And those will become more than ever important drivers of differentiation. And so our strong recommendation is that if you go into a digital transformation of your factory, also make this your core priorities. So Corona and the consequences. I gave you 10 propositions on the future of digital business models. I'm very glad now curious to hear your feedback. Perhaps you have a proposition number 11, but overall we'll think there will be new or reinforced strategic priorities, new business models, and new kinds of work and new organization driving profitability, but also sustainability. So our vision for the future of Industry 4.0 2030 in the end is more or less the same. But the ways how we come to this vision, and perhaps that we are not there in 2030, but already in 2025 or 2026, I think this really changed. So I think I don't have to read out these slides. These are just my conclusions. And actually I'm showing the slide since years, and nothing here has changed. Why we are doing it, what we have to do. And so I encourage you to really now engage in your smart manufacturing journey. And I'm very happy to be perhaps part of this or hear from your story later on. Thank you very much.